Good evening, chaps and chopesses. Welcome to another session for the Wise Asylum. Well. What a week indeed. What do you reckon to that? So tonight I want your input, big chat. What do you see happening this week before? What is it that you're seeing? Because so many people are just not seeing what's actually happened, methinks. And I don't like it. You know, it's not good, and we'll see. I mean, give me your thoughts. I want your thoughts tonight. I want Q&A, your thoughts. We've got a couple of things to cover. I've got the Olympic ceremony on here just in case I can pick up any images that might be of interest. What's going on? Well, I know exactly what's going on, but can you see it, ladies and gentlemen? Because you've got all the fruit bats out there on the street giving it the big, we're fantastic and amazing. And I put on Facebook, a video up on Facebook today, excellent. A guy going around all these people with signs, refugees welcome. asking them, would you have refugees in your area? No, none of them would have them in their area. So these people are full of shit. These people are just idiots, Gollum, nothing to them. Nothing to them. Just dancing around, thinking they're doing something good because they're bored shitless and they've no life. What an absolute con job, but they don't realise what it is they're doing. Well, maybe they do, but they're cowards. They're the people that have joined the Bolshevist state, the Soviet state, hoping that it'll not touch them, it'll keep them safe. Don't touch me, girl, leave me alone, I'm lovely, I like you. Yeah, collaborators, they also get called as the time moves forward. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, let's just say. So the idiots, the numpties, the fruit bats, and the infants. The ones that think that protesting is running around on the streets, swearing, shouting, throwing bricks, throwing bottles, throwing fireworks, and basically just being completely and utterly schoolyard imps. They've been rounded up and dealt with. Let's be quite frank about it. And of course, the old Bolshevik state under Jimmy Savile's vagina, our new Prime Minister, and the CPS and the police are making a big play about this, how it's all the right wing and we have to do this and we have to censor this and follow that with Elon Musk, and you can see that they're trying to get a big divide between Americans and us here, because of course the Bolsheviks have took over the entire European landmass and of course now on their way to doing it here also. Because the Bolsheviks have been on these islands for a very long time thanks to Labour. The unions, all that malarkey. That's Bolshevism. And of course the Tories have been taken over by the corporatism. Two sides of the same coin, working together, as always. As they say was over there in America. It's just so pathetic to see people fall for this game time and time and time again. But the might that they're trying to pump onto the streets, the good news is it fizzled out very quickly, and that really put this corporate state in a bit of a mess, because now what you've got streets full of idiots saying anti this, anti that, when really they're just the lunatics anyway. And the police are playing a game called, you can't go on that side of the street, you've got to stay on this side of the street, because that side of the street's the enemy, when in fact all you've got on the street is these so-called anti-right-wing protesters. So the police are trying to play this little game, this creepy game, and it's just not washing. People are seeing through it, and they're trying to pump in more and more and more and more power. This, we must do that, we have to do this, we're going to jail you this, if you do something on Facebook, we're going to jail you for that, blah, 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 and attacking Elon Musk, who banned the UK government's Twitter account, which I thought were quite funny and hilarious, to be quite frank. If you were all working together as one team, it would actually be quite funny and it is hilarious anyway, but it would be exceptionally hilarious. However, once you know that they're all working to the same agenda anyway, it's just wind and piss. Wind and piss everywhere, and that's pretty much it. Now, I'm watching this Olympics, and they're not showing anything, they're showing it crowd. So, obviously, they're that embarrassed about this closing ceremony, it would appear. They're not showing anybody, apart from the saps that are there, and there's not that many when you compare how many use are there for these ceremonies in the stadium. Interesting, isn't it? This one's not in the stadium. For some reason, these opening and closing ceremonies. But here I am watching this now, and there's nothing apart from showing the crowd. So they're obviously embarrassed about the ending. They don't want the people to see through the symbolism. Would be my opinion. However, we'll see. We'll keep it on for a bit to see whether they start to show us any images and telegraphing what it is they're about to do. But, you know, this week, there's so much change this week, and I'm not so sure people have actually took notice of what's actually happened. It's like there's a handover of the streets. And that's very important. It's very important indeed. Now, okay, so the lunatics have had their little gig. And they are lunatics, you know, they're low-grade people. All love Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, the absolute joke, who's crying his eyeballs out now because after he'd come here and excited all the numpties, off he went to Cyprus, it would appear. He didn't go back home to Tenerife, he went to Cyprus, and somebody blew it. And somebody sort of had it with him at his table, and you could see the guy absolutely shat his pants. So Super Tommy isn't that super after all. You've got Jordan Peterson interviewing, you've got Alex Jones, you've got all these tits interviewing this complete dick who's run off like the little child that he is, because of course he acts for a side, does he not? And it's just falling apart if you've got the eyes to see, if you can see what's happening. But you've got the CPS throwing it down your neck that they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and you better not do this, and you better not do that. You've got all these police, private, remember these police now, CPS, all private for-profit companies. You know, they keep talking law, there's no law in it. There's no law in it apart from contract law. Everything they do is against persons. And of course, if you've followed this stream for quite a number of years, you'll know that there's a major difference between a man and a person. And all this stuff is based on persons. Elon Musk, I put a couple of things on his thing about this bargy he's got going on. So I put it up and say, yeah, you need to get to grips with this man in person, and put that video of me going through the long form. And he looked at it and wouldn't let it go anywhere. These guys are just so shilling. It's ridiculous. They're so pathetic. But while you out there believe it. And now you've got everybody on Twitter going, let's block Elon Musk, like Elon Musk gives a fuck about their little accounts. It's so ridiculous, this Bolshevist garbage. But the major problem is, have you seen what it is that the Bolsheviks, as the main thrust of everything that's going on, actually is? Have you seen it, what it is that's the real worry and the transfer that's going on here right now? All being run by the Bolshevik state. All of it, every single bit of it. Are you noticing this stuff, ladies and gentlemen? You know, so I want your input tonight. What do you think, and what are you seeing? And we can discuss it around that. So John says, hello John, Cos973 has got the gigs on and the smiley face. Hello Cos, PY Music, hello and good evening all, good evening Paul. Mark says, evening Sean, evening Mark. Paul Sefton says, good evening Sean and fellow inmates of the White Asylum. Good evening to you, Paul. Mew says, morning, afternoon, good evening, one and all. Sunday sermon from the White Asylum with the amazing and fantastic is pronouns. Shawnee boy. Thank you very much, Mew. And good evening to you. Big E says, hey Sean and everybody, I finally got some electricity on Sunday. Well done for you, sir. Good stuff, it works, that electricity, doesn't it? It's good shit. Evening E. Mew says, knobheads everywhere. They have no idea what they're doing, they're so thick. Yeah, it's cowardice, is all this. It's all cowardice. This is exactly how the game works. If you study any nation where Bolshevism gets stuck in and starts to play its harp, in the active sense, it's done its subversive thing since Zionism took its root on these islands, which has been in the main to uneducate the populations, but more importantly, and it's the most important agenda, is to dismantle the family unit. And they've done that very easily. 60s, free love, abortion, contraception, homosexuality, confusion of gender, all part of the game. But in the main, it was all about feeding these unclean women the idea that they don't need the male. They don't need the male, and the kids don't need the father. And, you know, so many of these women have suffered for that, in that decision. But if you think that's the be-all and end-all of that agenda, believe you me, the next phase that's coming down the line, you've only just begin to suffer the consequences of throwing out the male from the family unit. And my advice to every male out there, if you have offspring, you might not be in the family unit, you might not even be on good terms with the woman, but you need to get back in that unit. I don't mean living there, but you need to reappraise your authority with your offspring, because you might not be able to save the crazy woman, but you can certainly save your free bags from what's about to take place if this doesn't get broken by real men of England. And this has nothing to do with the EDL. Everybody knows me. I'm about England as a body of law that gives you the freedoms. The greatest body of law that's ever been in the last 6,000 years, which is why America took it. Australia were built in it. New Zealand were built in it. And Canada was built in it. And that's exactly what it is that's being undermined on this island in the United States. It's been done in Australia, New Zealand and Canada. And now they're doing it here. They're removing England. Any mention of England now, and this Bolshevik state is throwing it down your neck, frightening you to death, terrifying you, which is why I've got all these cowards on the street going, I'm on your side, we'll believe anything you want us to believe. Oh. So what's happening? And they've got a major force in there that's going to broom it for them, because they're not got much going on up there, and they're easy prey to be moved by this system of evil. And that is what I've seen happening this week. I don't know whether you've seen it. Lex says, evening Sean, evening Lex, Slipknot, alright Sean, Jackie and everyone, hello Slipknot. Cos says, I think it's all going how it's meant to go exactly, although they did expect the violence to go a little bit further, but you are absolutely 100%. It's going exactly as they want it to go. Exactly. It's just a little bit more difficult because they've now had to feign this idea that there's still some kind of battle going on outside on the streets between the numpties that throw things, shout things and swear at people and the rest of the population, which is clearly not the case. All the people on the streets today are the bored, people with no lives, and the ones that are shouting themselves going, we love you, whatever label you give yourself. You could call yourself fascist if you want, we love you. You could call yourself communist if you want, we're still on your side because we're scared shitless. Please don't hurt us. That's what you've got from the English side of this. The Welsh, the Scottish. Oh, yeah, do what you want. We don't care. You just don't come to my house with the jackboot. It's, And John says, good vid, and we haven't started yet. Thanks, John. Where are we here? Hells says, if you're going to speak of recent events, then try to speak the truth. Listened the 3 minutes, and it was 3 minutes of incorrect statements. Well, sunshine, here's your chance. Show us where I've gone wrong, sunshine. Go on. Don't sit there pontificating bollocks. If you want to come on here, present and prove your point. You get one chance, son. And if you do it, you don't do it, fuck off. Alright? So you big your balls up now, sunshine, whoever the fuck you are. Let's see it. You understand? Let's see you. So there's your chance, pal. Big E says, necessity has no law. Law maxim. Right. This evening all, says Debbie. Evening, Debbie. Right. So, come on, guys. I need your opinions on what you've seen this week. And more importantly, whoever this little Johnny come lately is, let's see you, sunshine. Don't hide away like some little shitbag. You've started your gig off. Let's see you. Come on. Don't fucking hide there like some kind of little pussy. We want to see exactly what you're saying and back up your statement. Right now. I'll give you 60 seconds because, of course, there's a delay. But if he doesn't get mods, snot it. Snot the little shit. Little pontificating fuck. Come on, let's have your sunshine. You've had your 60 seconds. I want to see a big fucking message from you with your gob. Come on, sunshine. You're not typing fast enough, pal. So, what's happened on the streets this week? What's happened on the streets? Another culture has taken over the streets. Have you noted? Did you see that? This is Bolshevism in action, ladies and gentlemen. Bolshevism uses everything and everybody for its own ends. And I'm going to come back now and show you and remind you of this. Can't really see that, can you not? But let's expand that. It's very important that we start to understand what's going on. Okay? The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. This war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effects of absolute atheism, origin of savagery and their most bloody turmoil. The multitude disillusioned with Christianity will receive the true light through the universal Jesuit Vatican II system, my edition, manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view, and we get an inkling of that in the externalization of the hierarchy by Madame Blavatsky, the Theosophist. This will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. This will follow the destruction. Now, Christianity is almost destroyed, if we are to be truthful about it. So that's a reminder of the strategy and aim of the Bolsheviks all over Blighty. Yeah, that's what's going down right now. Alright. So I see our big mouth here has chosen not to add something to the garbage. So obviously there's a little retard sticking its little shit bag in. Well, thanks for getting rid of that, because we don't need arse wipes. Come here by all means and throw shit at me. I don't mind. But make sure it sticks some and back it up. Because I will annihilate you with words. It's that simple. Last week we went through the usurping the text. Do you remember that one? Where we showed that basically what they'd hidden from everybody was the fact that the all-encompassing Father is way beyond the reach of the Elohim, who we've also explored in the past and named the Barbello. And this, of course, is your Olympians. It's all your gods and your goddesses that we've ever heard of, whether you class them as Anunnaki, whatever culture, doctrine, or historical thesis you take it from, all these gods and goddesses, Odin, Loki, all of them are referenced as the Barbello, and of course we now can see them as the actual Elohim. That's who we're dealing with here. So all these battles, these wars that have been going on forever and ever, is the archons, because that's the other term that they're known by, having us fight their wars for them, and of course it plays itself out in the physical down here, and we also for the consequences of that. And of course there was the image that presented as the Elohim, and notice it looks a bit faceless, that, which I thought was interesting, because if you remember the other week we went through sort of some of the Olympic imagery, and of course the one coming up from the underworld passing the torch was faceless, and it's got to be some kind of connection in that, I would presume. Now, I've put this together. Now, this Olympics is all it's showing here is the crowd. So they're clearly not showing us the closing ceremony. So that's interesting in and of itself, is it not? So there we go. They're not showing it anywhere. Unless they're showing it on any of the other channels I've had here. No, they're all just showing the, let's try one more. No, showing the crowd. Nobody's showing the actual ceremony, which is rather pathetic. Hang on, what's going on here? No, nothing. Nobody is showing the Olympic closing ceremony. Surprise, surprise. Well, I'm not actually surprised, if I'm truthful. Not surprised at all. So this just pulls us into what I said before in relation to the symbolism of this figure from the underworld handing this torch to the body corporate. Yeah. The empire of persons, not man. No man involved in it, of course, apart from the ones that sit atop it. It's all based on the rule of persons, and of course we're awaiting this king of persons, aren't we? Given many names: Iblis, Antichrist, Anti-Life. You know, all these particular names that all the religions are expecting to take the world stage. But then when you look at what's happening today, you can pretty much see that the majority of people are actually, they are that system because they've gone soul lord grade in their own existence. They've not realised that actually they are the very creatures that are actually moving this system in. We've discussed this many times in different variations, hopefully that we can get an idea of exactly what we're talking about. But this is just a deeper insight into some of the stuff that I didn't pick up for the actual opening ceremony. It's just, what I didn't know was that this figure, this faceless figure, before he comes up from the underworld and passes on the torch to the corporate, is seeking the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. So why is he seeking the Mona Lisa? And what does the Mona Lisa represent? That it's a big part of this ceremony. And then the next piece after that was him looking for the Mona Lisa. Couldn't find it. He's looking down in the sewer. Is he not? And then, of course, we have... This is always peaceful, unified at the opening ceremony of Paris 24, was it? Everybody were going tits up. That is until the camera panned down below the waters of the River Seine, underneath the flotilla of athletes parading on the water's surface. Minions! Yes, those minions chartered the submarine to steal Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa painting. Now, there is a video of this, and basically these minions, to the music of Chariots of Fire, whizzing arrows everywhere trying to hit the Mona Lisa, while some other minions are whizzing about trying to save it. And then in doing so, they actually sink this ship. They actually sink the Mona Lisa. Sorry, they sink the submarine. Now this is, I've done something wrong here. This is the older one that I do. And then eventually they sink the submarine, the minions escape, and the Mona Lisa's floating down the Seine. Now I don't understand. Why is the Mona Lisa so important? And there's just sort of some of the images off the video of the minions inside and outside the submarine. I can't work out what the submarine is actually symbolising. Then, of course, you've got the one that everybody caused a major fuss about, and that is the debauchery of the Last Supper. And then what are they symbolising? So we've looked at this faceless figure handing over the torch to what appears to be corporatism, the suit, George Michael look, everything you'd expect from these suits, these kind of geezers that think they're somewhat special, but actually they're cursed. But what are they actually doing here? They're passing a torch to something, from something to something. The faceless suggests to me it's not something that's being carried out so much by man. It's something that's taking place in the realm of the Elohim. And so we've got some interesting data to look at, because this picked up this week, and it's a very short insight into what you might call the hidden side of the biblical text, the real reason and mission of the man Yeshua, or Jesus as we know him. Because what you presented from religion is just such a exoteric sort of grasp on the actual situation. It's quite ridiculous. And to deepen this sort of knowledge, you've got to cock a wink at some of the old Gnostic stuff. Now, Gnosticism went up its arse, granted, because it did go up its own arse. But basically, the sort of ethos of everything in relation to the occult side of it all was that Yeshua's mission began the moment he left the realm of the Heavenly Father. He struck the hearts of his chosen 12 apostles with energy from that realm, and then on his journey down from that, through the spheres, through down to the earthly kingdom and where he was born, a star appeared that was rather odd. It wasn't normal. It was noted by the Magi, the astrologers of the day, and they took that on that actually something in the heavens was shifting, something was moving. And then this child is born. And basically what you get into with that is that actually what was going on is, up until that point, the archons fully controlled this entire system, from the point of the Elohim, the archons, right down to the earth. And they were making sure this was a solid prison. There was no method for all of us stuck down in this realm to escape back beyond the reach of the archons. And that this was so because the archons had set up the 12 houses, as we know as Aries, Taurus, etc., were set in such a way that they fully controlled this entire system beneath the level of the realm of the Elohim. And something major had to be done in order to open a gateway for man down here, so that they could then ascend beyond the power of the archons, and if they prove themselves worthy, ascend back to the realm afforded to Jesus. And that Jesus, in his mission as well, was actually releasing Sophia from her stupid nonsense and thinking she could, like most women, she could do what she wanted and birth her own child outside of the laws of this realm, and birth Yaldabaoth, or Satan, whatever name you want to give it, which was a lion-faced critter with a sort of snake's body, and it was a complete fruit bat. And for her sin, she was cast out of her own realm into some dark place where she couldn't actually move from. And that part of that was the fact that Jesus, on his ascension, I think back, or resurrection rather, he freed Sophia and put her back in her place. And at the end of time, he's going to release her back to where she actually should be completely. So that's sort of the esoteric paradigm in relation to the hidden side of the biblical script, as it were. So Jesus was doing far more than just preaching to man. The whole event that he was doing was actually creating, you might call a stargate, back right up to the heavenly forces and maybe beyond, when the last days finally play out, and that those that have reached the heavenly frequencies will actually then go back to source. The rest, of course, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Apparently, you're all going to be annihilated, not just physically, but as a spiritual essence, you're also going to be completely demolished. Which is why we touched on last week the fact that we've been force-fed this idea that you can't change. You can't destroy anything, you can only change it. Well, actually, again, that's a science that takes you off the esoteric aspects of what I've just tried to point out to you there, in that actually souls can be completely destroyed. And of course, you look out there today, there's a lot of souls out there that actually the entire universe would be far better off if they didn't exist. There's no telling them, there's no teaching them, and they'll lie before they accept truth and facts when it's placed before them. So we don't have to read all this, but I've put 4 pages of it up, and I've also put the link on this document so that you can look at the chapter in which that thesis is actually explaining a little bit more detail. And basically what it is that the Apostolic Church, the Church of Rome, was built entirely on the idea that this new heaven and earth that was shifted at from the path of Jesus, opening that gateway through the 12 apostles. In essence, what happened, we had the archons, or the negatives. They fully controlled this entire system. But in the 12 apostles, Jesus formed 12 positive aspects to balance the 12 negatives of these major archons that were gaining control over every soul and make sure you came back. You couldn't get out of reincarnation. And so, in essence, it split it then and gave a positive 12 in opposition to the negative 12. And that the original church was built on the basis of representing the 12 positive aspects of what we might call the archons. So their aspect in the negative, in came the angels through the apostles and gave us that balance. So in essence, we had the choice then. We could carry on being trapped by the archons, or we could cleanse ourselves and open ourselves up to the protection of the 12 positive aspects, or the archangels as it might be. I hope that makes sense. So we'll just go through a little bit of this so you get an idea of what it's saying. And it's a very interesting chapter to actually read if this stuff actually does interest you. And it just says, needed to be probed in order to grasp what was really going on. This concept is clearly expressed by the Valentinian Theodotus, who taught that the stars themselves do nothing except show the activity of the ruling powers. Just as the flight of the birds, it points out something but does nothing. The ancient astrologers hoped to be able to grasp the meaning of these celestial occurrences and their earthly correspondences in order to discern the voices of the gods and figure out what was happening around them, as above, so below. So they came from the standpoint, if we can understand what's going on in the heavens, we can see how it's playing out on the earth. And, this astrology is as old as time, is it not? Egypt was full of it. That's their writings, and the hieroglyphs is full of astrology. We've gone through the Gospels astrologically, and we can see that it has teeth there and references it. It references it chemically, and it references it in law. And then, of course, you can also see it as a physical play, as in the life of the man himself. And so that's the magic, you might say, of the biblical script as a whole. The Gnostic literature, although not unique in its astrological underpinnings, is obsessed with mapping the correspondences between the heavens and the earth. The reason for this is that the Gnostic Christian system of salvation depend upon altering the cosmic structures, physically changing the universe from a cage that traps the spirit to a porthole that frees it. The universe before the advent of the Saviour Jesus is not only the creation of a lesser God, who is described as arrogant, jealous, ignorant, and in some cases evil, but it functions as a prison for the spirit. The prison guards are the celestial beings, the rulers or archons, who reside in the planetary spheres, above the earth, and in the sublunar realm, where the abyss or Hades was believed to be. The various Gnostic systems play with the number of these archons, but all of them are built from astrological speculation about the number 7 and 12, commonly assumed in the Greco-Egyptian and Hermetic environments in which these Gnostic systems originated. The number 7 reflects the 7 planets: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury and the Moon. The Gnostics have even left us with enough evidence to reconstruct particular identifications of certain planets with certain named archons, although these identifications are not constant across the literature. The number 12 is correspondence with the 12 signs of the zodiac: Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And of course, modern astrology understands the 13th, which is Ophiuchus. Now that has reference to Judas, believe it or not, which again is rather interesting when you just have a look at the early Gnostic beliefs. Of course, it did go up its own arse. It did get knocked off pretty severely by the church, because originally the Gnostics did actually still work with the church, but obviously as they pursued their knowledge base, they started to separate from it, to the point that they started to see that they said that Jesus' apostles actually represented the 12 archons in the negative. So I can understand why the Apostolic Church itself started to think things were not quite right with the Gnostics, and quite rightly, right or wrong, would have to divide away from them. But eventually the Gnostics became so powerless that they actually did pretty much come back into the church fold. And then you can see them re-emerging through the art of the Renaissance. So, a lot of the hidden symbolism in the Renaissance art is actually the Gnostic knowledge inside the Apostolic Church. So then, this is where you've had all this Renaissance data, these divides between peoples and religions and such like. By the time the Gnostic texts began to be authored, this Hellenistic astrological system was combined with the old Egyptian decanal system. Egyptian astrological speculation placed a very significant emphasis on stars they called the decans. Egyptian astrologers had observed constellations that ascended with the sun every 10 days. The rising of the decans were used to divide time into hours. The decans were considered very powerful gods because, unlike the stationary constellations, these stars, the astrologers thought, did not stand in stations. Unlike the planets, they did not move backwards, nor could they be eclipsed by the sun. Chapter 6 in Stobaeus' Hermetic Handbook describes the decans as stars that rule from an area just above the zodiac signs in the sphere of the fixed stars, so that they hold up the circle of the universe and look down on the circle of the zodiac. They exercise great power by slowing the circle of the universe and hastening the movement of the planets. According to Stobaeus, one of the decans, called the Bear, was thought to be centrally located in the zodiac, functioning like the spoke of a wheel making the zodiac revolve. Now, this of course is the origin of the pole star, and of course the swastika is the great bear as it traverses the pole star during the 4 seasons. That creates and gives you the swastika. So that's the old portal through which the 7 rays came, hence again the 7 being important. Now, coming back to this data as I have, I'm starting to look and think, so is this swastika symbolism, are we to believe that that was the old system under the archons, or is that still the case after the advent of the apostles and Yeshua? Now, when you go back into a lot of the old Catholic churches across Europe, you'll find that a lot of them have swastikas all over them, which tells me that no, the actual symbolism around the Great Bear and thus the swastika is actually still in play after the advent of the work of Yeshua. So I'm quite happy that that is the case. It still has standing and reason why the Germanic tribes held it at their heart forever until it was annihilated by the Bolsheviks by inverting all the symbolism that belonged to the Aryans, and then throwing it all over the Aryan peoples, when in fact most of the nasty stuff that were going on in Europe was being carried out by the Bolsheviks. According to Stobaeus, one of the decans, called the Bear, was thought to be centrally located in the zodiac, functioning like the spoke of a wheel, making the zodiac revolve. The decans were the guardians of the cosmos, holding together everything and watching over the order of everything. In the Hellenistic period, the Egyptian astrologers parsed the 36 decans into the zodiac by allotting 3 decanal gods to each of the zodiac signs. This combination can be observed in the 2nd century astrological boards, recovered from the Old Well in Grand, a village in Lorraine. In Egyptian speculation, these gods were doubled, so that 72 rulers were apportioned to the zodiac. This meant that 36 decans and 36 horoscopes were each considered rulers of every 5 degrees of the zodiac. Collectively, they were identified as the 72 spirits, because they referenced every 5 degrees of the zodiac, and they were considered to be very special stars by the astrologers. An important 2nd century astrological calendar based on this 5th degree division of the zodiac is published among the Oxyrhynchus papyri, and the year is divided into a 5-day week, which are overseen by 72 deities who influence for good or bad what happens during their reign, including particular illnesses associated with them. So important were these stars that some Egyptians singled out a favourite, a decan with a snake's body and a lion's face, with sun rays radiating from its head. They called this decan Shnubis or Shnumis. His image was reproduced on numerous green stone amulets. This is the image that is eventually associated with Yaldabaoth, suggesting that the origins of the Yaldabaoth god are connected with a particular Egyptian decan. The identification of the archons with the planets, the zodiacal signs, and various degrees of the zodiac meant that powers opposing the supreme high god controlled not only what happened on earth, but what happened to the fallen spirit. Although there are many renditions in the Gnostic literature about how this happened in terms of agents, the baseline story is that the otherworldly spirit sinks into denser and denser cosmic materials until it lodges within the human soul and body. This process was understood as a descent of the spirit through the cosmic realms through various zodiac gates or along the cosmic pole, the axis mundi. As the spirit sank, it literally passed through various constellations and planets, receiving along the way the psychic or soul inclinations of each of these beings. Now, this is quite important because people just believe that obviously your time of your birth and the celestial imprint is important, but also there's a passage down here through the celestial frequencies, and you're picking these up as you come down, and you're determining then what your map's going to be when the moment you're conceived, and then there's another image fixed in the stars when you're conceived, and that's defining what you've picked up on your journey down here. So which archons are going to be moving you, which are commanding you. Are you with the positive aspects, because that's now been shifted, and there becomes your soul map, and you can see it on your hand if you're into palmistry. It's there in your astrological chart if you're understanding the astrology side of things. So this stuff, I mean, this is why for aeons, people have, well, for millennia, people have said the Catholic Church is still operating in paganism. Well, it's not so much paganism, but this is the knowledge that underpins everything. It's just that they didn't give you this. They gave you this script, and off you went and went to church and did the worship and put the cash in the basket. But the actual esotericism of the Catholic Church is based still in this stuff. The apostles, the shift of the houses, which it shifted the situation up there in the heavens and confused the archons. It removed the power, absolute power, to control everybody. And of course, today what we're seeing is the archons strike back, trying to pull back their full command and control over every soul. Which is why they say Satan is stealing souls. But since the changeover in this system with the path of what actually happened in the heavens through Yeshua, he's had to undermine the cultural aspects of living in sync with sort of the laws that were represented through the Gospels, and that's what they've been doing. This is why they've had to attack Christianity, and I have to say they've done a bloody good job. So man has forsaken that gateway that's been created by the man, but of course you get into some of the esotericism, and it tells you clearly that everything's going to go to shit, but they will not be able to block what was achieved in that time. It's just unfortunate that, you've chosen a timeline now that's you've forsaken the spiritual protection that's afforded to you if you tread in the path to try and break free of the command of these archons, as it were. The speculation was assumed knowledge typical of Middle Platonic thought. Philosophers such as Nemenius taught that as the psyche descended from the upper sphere of the fixed stars, it passed through certain stargates into the lower planetary spheres, where certain faculties accumulated in the soul. Some of these faculties were positive, while others were negative. Macrobius says that the natural philosophers attribute to Saturn the rational powers of the soul, to Jupiter the active, to Mars the spirited, and to the Sun the perceptive, to Venus the appetitive, to Mercy the linguistic, and to the Moon the nutritive. And similarly attributed to Proclus and Servius. The Hermetic traditions understand these accumulations to be largely negative. In the first book of the Corpus Hermeticum, we find just such negative lists: falsehood, unlimited appetite, presumptuous, audacity, arrogance, appetitive, guile, evil devices, and nutritive. Similarly, we find negative equations in the Valentinian Gospel of Mary, where the wisdom of the wrathful person is derived from Saturn, the seventh planet, the foolish understanding of the flesh from Jupiter, the sixth planet, the rule of the flesh from Mars, the fifth planet, the zeal for death from the Sun, the fourth planet, and ignorance from Mercury, the third planet, and desire from Venus, the second planet, and darkness from the Moon, the first planet. Okay, so those are the archons in the negative, but they're just the 7 planets. So the 7 archons that operate with those planets, but of course there's been positive aspects to them as well, which is what this whole gig in the Gospels is actually all about. In Gnostic literature, these inclinations are largely negative ones because they are derived from capricious or malicious archons. In the Apocryphon of John, the psychic traits given to the descending soul are recounted in a slightly different fashion, since this text understands that each planetary archon is trying to fashion Adam's soul to imitate the image of the first perfect man, which had been revealed to them from above. Thus, the writer of the Apocryphon of John states that the archons created the first man. So this is the Elohim, by means of their respective powers in correspondence with the characteristics which were given, and each authority supplied a characteristic in the form of the image which he had seen in its psychic form. In this case, the planets appear to be described in ascending order by the powers, and each give one characteristic to Adam's soul. The moon associated with the archon Athoth is called the excellent planet. He gives Adam his born soul. The second planet, Mercury, is the archon Eloahu. He is characterized by foreknowledge and creates for Adam his sinew soul. The third planet, Venus, is described as divinity and gives him flesh soul. So that's the end of them, but I've put the link under here because you can read the whole chapter if you like. It's a very interesting read because it will give you a greater insight into, first, the division between the Gnostics and the Apostolic Church, but now we can clearly see that the organisation that was built around the actual Apostolic Church has been taken over completely by the archons. It's no longer operating in accordance with the Gospels, and you can see that in everywhere. And the books, the Nag Hammadi and Manichaean Studies by Johannes van Oort and Ionai Thomasson, and there's the link to the chapter within that book that deals with that knowledge. Now, so the archons, negative, very negative creatures that they are the opposite of what we would aspire to see in the archangels, Gabriel, Michael, etc. And again, we've got these 12 apostles that create, so the Apostolic Church actually claims to be operating in accordance with the positive aspects given to us through the 12 apostles, and obviously ultimately Yeshua. So there's the division. Archons negative, positive on the angelic side. So yeah, you're understanding that. And this is why everybody talks around and says, oh, the Catholic Church is still pagan. No, because that's the basic esotericism that all this stuff's based on. I mean, the Old Testament was based on that. The Jews and the Christians together, early days before the rise of Rome, the Roman Church, worked together in this system. And that's why they conjoined. It's the Talmud that's moved first the Jews off that, and then through Zionism, the Christians. And in the same way as I explained one time about how in the Quran it's very clear at the beginnings that the Quran makes it clear that everything you need to know is in this book, even the details, and that in going to the hadiths, which it does, all the imams do, they're in breach of the Quran, and actually from that moment on, everything that's created after that is kafir. It's kafir. They'll argue that until they're blue and black, but that's simply the case. You can't get away from that, or you're not believing the Quran. You can't have it all ways. And this is why it's important that Muslims read the Quran, because they haven't. They don't know this. So these archons have basically, it's like the archons strike back, is everything that this New World Order is. And it's taken over everything, which is why it has to annihilate Christianity, because in their eyes, that is the gateway that gives everybody down here the opportunity, by following his lead, not so much worship. I mean, religion needs you to believe in worship. That it needs that, otherwise it has no function. But if you go with the actual terms that is presented, it's follow. So you're saying follow his lead, because he's expressing the kingdom of his Father, who comes into all of man from within. And that's the essence of it. So it's following that lead, push it on that path. You're going to come into contact with these positive entities who are going to protect your path as you raise yourself up, hopefully, to get yourself to the higher heavens, so at the end of days you can actually go back to source. So that's basically the theology of it all, the hidden, and reason why everybody keeps accusing the Vatican of being paganist. It's not paganism at all. That's esoteric knowledge. It's not exoteric knowledge, it's esoteric knowledge. And it's also the point at which all these divisions have come between the Gnostics, the early Jewish and Christians amalgamations, and they've split off again, but because of the Talmud. The oral law coming in and saying, no, you have to, if you want to understand your book, you've got to look at it from this perspective, as the Hadith do the same to the Quran. And that's the problem. This is why we're where we are there. The archons have come back in through these other books, Hadiths and the Talmud, and they've now dictated completely how we should understand the original thesis, and they've obviously obfuscated, they've translated certain aspects, as we looked at last week. They've hidden the fact that the real creative force, that the biblical Old and New calls Father, has been obfuscated and presented the entire realm of the Elohim as the ultimate be-all and end-all. And that's a very clever gig. And you can see now why you could study the Bible all your life. If you don't see those keys, you're really not going to understand anything, because your limit is the Elohim, and then you're looking at the Elohim as the ultimate father, when in fact none of them are. They're all the offspring coming in the main via Sophia, and her being very naughty and thinking she could do it all by her sister, could do it by herself, and made it with chaos and created chaos. And that's ultimately, again, it's another sort of esoteric thesis you can enter into if you like. So that kicks us off and just puts us at the thing. If you're trying to understand what's going on, that puts us to an understanding. This is where we're at right now. Bolshevism in all its forms is the archon system. It kills, it murders, it rapes, imprisons, it enslaves. That's what it does, and they do it. if they get it in there. They've got a front operating it for them at this particular stage, and that would be Islam. There's prophecies all over that say that Islam's on the wrong side at the beginning, but we have to accept and realise that that is the case right now. They're on the wrong fucking side, so we have to be very careful and aware of that, because all our females now and our offspring are wide open for the next bit that we're going to have a look at in relation to what you're going to expect to rise now, because this system is being now backed entirely by the Bolshevik state in its entirety. The police, CPS, Sir Jimmy Savile's vagina, they're all supporting this broom in all its forms. So it's only going to rise if we start to think that the only opposition to this is Tommy's fucking fruit bat brigade who throw stones, swear and shout a lot and think that's called rebellion. Rebellion, you've got to use this. First you've got to understand what you're invoking is England. Then there's the laws. You're also now recognising that you can't be starting to group together in any way, shape or form like that. You can't do it. You can't do any grouping together electronically. You can't do anything on electronic. You can't do anything like that kind of stuff when you've got a phone in your pocket. Yeah, now I called for militia, didn't I, about 4 years ago. But quickly realised that the people that were coming to him were the fruit bats like Tommy Robinson. You can't deal with people like that. You need people that understand team, command. Yeah, so you're looking military people. But then with military people, you have to be careful, because you could have 10 military people come together. 2 people in that military unit will be harking back to the commanders because they're still tied to the colours, not realising. So they're not understanding the game. You have to understand the game. It's if you use your brain. And this Bolshevik system and the broom thinks that it's beat the patriots in this nation, the Tommy Robinson fruitcakes. No, now it's time for us, intelligent people, to recognise the problem and realise the solution. And that is we have to reinforce England. It's as simple as that. That's where our power lies. Okay? They're setting it all up now. If you talk anything right-wing that they deem, they'll be at your door because you're still a person. You've really got to start using your brain now. Oh, we can see all the idiots that have shit themselves because the cowards and we're on your side, Gov, no matter what you call yourself, no matter what you want to do to us, just don't hurt us. They're pathetic, they're useless. Don't even bother with people like that. They are the wasters, the collaborators, yeah? That's what they are. They're nobodies. Don't let them anywhere near you anymore. Keep to people that know what the crack is and are like yourself. And don't let them divide the attitude of England to America, because that's exactly what this Bolshevik state is trying to do right now. Right this minute. And that'll have ramifications in NATO between the militaries if the Americans start to believe that everything Sir Jimmy Savile's vagina is speaking is how we think. They might think it that they're out protesting, talking out their arse. We like refugees, but then when asked if they'll have one in their house, no, they won't. That's full of shit. They're full of shit, these people. They're just bored, no life, and they're on the streets because they've nothing better to do. See it, understand it, start to use your brain, but don't think for a second you can sit back here now and do nothing and it'll all sort itself out. It won't. So where did we get to before? And then we'll just have a little look at why they've spent so much effort in dividing the family unit and for what reason. Okay? And it's terrifying. You're not going to like it. Where did we get to? Solvamist says, hello Sean, hello Solvamist. Gary Garner says, good evening people, good evening Gary. What closing ceremony isn't shown at all? Is this still not showing it? Yeah, well that's a frightened of summer, aren't they? What the hell's that? Right, so yeah, I'm not surprised. I really am not surprised that they're not showing it after the debacle of the others, and they really don't want us to see the symbolism in this closing ceremony. Would be my suggestion. Now, why have I not got no? Let me have a look here. Yeah, it's just showing the crowd, and they don't really look right interested neither. So, anyway, so yeah, nothing's being shown. I think we can understand why. It's on the BBC now. Oh, is it? Right, well, I can't see BBC on this, I don't think. You've got to sign in, haven't you? So, any interesting images, Mew? Keep us posted, will you, my old China? Gary says, yeah, I thought BBC would show it. Okay. I didn't watch any of it, opening events or any of it. Not giving it my energy, says Devin. I don't blame you, Devin. Jerry, Son of Mick says, late in or Sean and all the wise asylum. Good evening to you, sir. Solomon says, I wonder if the faceless knight from antiquity and ancient architecture is linked somehow. Well, I would say, yeah, definitely. We're dealing here with the Elohim, the archons, actually, the negative aspect of what we would call the angelic energies. Gaius Agricola says, hi, Sean. Good evening to you, Gaius. Ulick McGee says 12 archetypes. Exactly. Yes. The positive aspects of what is the negative archons. The apostles, as it were, representing. Now, Claudio did one of his gigs this week, and he's very clear that the Lion's Gate doesn't commence until the 16th, because that's when the sun enters Leo. That makes perfect sense to me. So you have to be careful when you follow some of these people that are running around on this astrology. They're not actually obviously following the wheel and the actual movements of these the planets. Now, in that we've just read, I've never agreed that the sun's a planet, to be quite frank. I think Pluto's definitely was involved in that before, but though they like to pretend it's only just been found. Again, that could be obfuscation. Because the last thing they want us to know, as the Esoteric, is the fact that the real purpose of the man was to completely and utterly annihilate the heavenly spheres in order it put the archons off track and out of power. And that they've used the entire 2,000 years of Pisces to pull that back together. And that's why they've been all out to destroy everything formed under Christendom, when it makes perfect sense. Where are we now? Alexander Malik. Alexander, evening Sean, evening all. I'm late, no problem, Alexander. Good evening to you. Solver Miss, apple for the teacher, for late arrivals. Yes, apples. Apples and apples. Donations if you wish, that's a good apple. I can go and buy an apple. Daniel Bygrave, divide and concord. Well, absolutely, Daniel. That's exactly the game. It's as old as time and it works a treat. And John says, good vid again. Thanks, John. You're a belter. Jerry says, that's why my backy time and now it imperative they destroy us on these lands. Exactly, they have to do. But first they have to install another power, so they can obfuscate it from themselves. Because you got to remember that the people that run this are Bolsheviks. They're running it all. They run Trump, they run Obama, they run the Crown, they run the Empire. They are the administrators because they're acting for the trustees, the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds are only the trustees for the Holy See banking dynasties. Yeah, the Vatican's a separate entity. The Church of Rome is a separate entity. They were conjoined, but they turned the Vatican into a state, a corporate state, in 1929. And then the Church just got annihilated as time went on. But the Catholics, the gathering, which is what a church is, would appear, although I haven't paid any attention for the last few weeks, because obviously I've been dealing with this council tax thing. So I don't know where they're at, whether Archbishop Pagano's had any more headway or what's going on. I've not really paid attention, so I've nothing to report as to how that's going on. But that is clearly a rebellion against the Vatican. So that, you could say, is the Apostolic Church opposing the archons again, but obviously it's no longer associated with the organisation that birthed it. And I think that's what Malachi Martin was actually saying when he said that the church has gone underground. And that's what he's saying. You know, I'm beginning to understand, the more I go into this stuff with understanding Catholicism, because even though I'm a Catholic, I don't understand it. I've never been a practicing Catholic. But the more I study this stuff of late, the more I'm understanding Malachi Martin. I mean, I understood him when I watched him back in the day, 15 years ago or so. But more so because I could connect with him from the occult side of things. When he was talking about his experience as an exorcist, I knew exactly what he was talking about because that's what I was experiencing in the 90s. But since then, as I've started to really understand the theology behind Catholicism, I'm starting to understand exactly what Malachi Martin was saying. So it's really interesting for me. I'm really enjoying the study. So that is a rebellion against that organisation that the archons have basically took over. Where are we now? Good vid. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. It's all Gladio, says Gaius. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you're right there, Gaius. Absolutely, yeah. Jerry says, I actually look back to your interviews with Claudio. Very good. Yeah, I like Claudio. He's a good lad. I like his astrology. Let's put it that way. His astrology's nice, and he's a nice guy. Ulick says, Shush Ferret, Beck's letters I want to see from You Are Eureka. Shush Ferret, Beck's letters I want to see from you. What? What the hell are you talking about there, man? Is that supposed to be Irish? But I don't think it was. So, you're talking to Jerry, because I haven't got a clue what you're saying there, me old China. Jerry says, laughing, target, Ulick. So, obviously, that's a private joke between you two. Slipknot says, we need both positive and negative. Well, I would say definitely, yeah. We'd have to be. It's a balance, innit? But what sort of it's saying is, before all this gig, it was just all negative, and they had the entire whole life in this realm trapped. Even when you died, you couldn't go beyond the archon that were controlling you from your journey down. If you get my meaning. 1.618 charge, says Solvimist. And gets thumbs up. Jerry says, I missed a lot of this one, Ulick. I have to listen back. Naughty boy, missed class. Detention next, you know. Detention and lines. In fact, detention and lines, because you do lines in detention, if I remember correctly. That's what we used to do anyway. And Jerry gives it the old explosions. Cos says, jingle jangle. Go by that. HR666 since 21. In America, above comment. Right, are you having a chat with yourself, boys? I'm not watching it. Seems I'm listening to you. Right, no worries, matey. That's good. Good evening, Sean and fellow White Asylum buddies. Good evening, Michael. Which one precedes the sun and which one follows it? Signs to known the time we're in. Which one precedes the sun and which one follows it? Signs. Huh? Well, we're in. In fact, if we haven't entered Aquarius, we're about to this year, I think. Is that what you're saying? And Ulick says, 100% Sean. Nice one, mate. Mark Orford said, I wouldn't have guessed you were watching this, Mew. And Solvemy says, a possessed child is believed to be the culprit behind the death of the Irish priest Malachi Martin. Really? Did he fall down some steps? Did he end up going down steps? A bit like that priest in actual Exorcist film. I mean, I did watch some interviews with Malachi back in the day where he got very excited. I was quite shocked actually that he. So there were a lot more to Malachi Martin than what you got on the coast to coast interviews. But then that's all of us, isn't it? We're all down here. None of us are perfect, as it were. Okay, so the Bolsheviks, they've got the gig going now. Now they've got the broom in. And now they're backing it with 100% of everything. They're allowing gangs on the streets with no issue. The police are running off. But if you're a white hunky and you even come out on the street, you've got these private for-profit corporate bodies calling themselves the police, working with the private for-profit judiciary and the private for-profit CPS and the private for-profit government all over you like a rash. Right, so that's fascism. It's a Bolshevist. It's a mix of Bolshevism and fascism together, so it's going to be even worse than what we saw express itself in Germany. In fact, there were two sides against each other, fascists versus Bolsheviks. Now they've merged, because they were always the same anyway. We Germans, unfortunately, just didn't see it. We need to see it, chaps. Now, what do we need to watch for this political Islam? What is it that these boys are trying to get in? Because there's a reason why they've divided the families, people, and it's not good. It's not good.
To put these immigrants in her house, her property.
Right. Start that
again.
Where
she was offered a fat chunk of money to put these immigrants in her house, her property. Then a delivery came, a container, and she dared to open that container and saw that that container had guns in it. And the question was, back then, I thought, are these people supporting the British Army? Are they going to be working with them? No. I think this, and this could get taken down. They allowed people to come into this country. There are well above capacity for this country to handle the amount of people. We all know that because we're feeling it, right? Something like 68 million when there should be 32. They bring them over, they let them in, they put them in the hotels, and then they give them guns. Have been programmed dumbly to sheepy follow and do. Think about it. The government let them in. They house them. They give them everything for free. You're going to get pissed by that. There's no doubt about it. I get pissed about it. Why am I working? Why am I paying taxes? Why am I having to pay for everything and they're getting everything for free? Who's not going to get pissed about that? The government let them in. They house them for free. The locals get pissed. They get angry and riot. They abuse Muslims, because these are what the immigrants are largely, aren't they? They're Muslims from the countries that the West have gone in and screwed over. They piss off the immigrants rise. Who's going to give the guns to the immigrants? It's not even going to give, they've given them. There is an army of people within. And those people, when they come up, you and your wheelie bins and your pallets and your distant level of attack is nothing compared to what they can deliver, because they've faced it themselves in their own countries at the hands of people.
Can you dig the scene? So that's an idea from an Asian lady living over here in England, what she thinks is going to happen, and obviously she's going to have an inside knowledge to what is being spoken in that culture. Now, okay, let's expand on that. What can we expect from this political side of a religion? Oh. Let me just start that again.
I've been told that they are planning to come to Wakefield on the weekend, but I highly doubt that they will come. You see that these protests that they're doing, they're in localities where the numbers of the mu'mineen are very little. Down south, Middlesbrough, very small number of mu'mineen. Have they not read into the history of the Battle of Badr? How we were only 313 in number, but that 313 defeated an army of 1,000, simply because of their unwavering faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all we can do is, we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide these individuals towards the path of Islam. You've seen some of their own members denounce them, completely going against what they are teaching, and saying that, look, I used to be part of them, but I don't stand with them anymore because I realize that they are too extreme in their beliefs. And as much as they want to destroy Islam and eradicate Islam, Islam is here to stay. And it is here to stay till the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, because that is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the reason why Islam is the quickest growing religion wherever you go in this world, No matter how much you try to destroy Islam, they tried it 1400 years ago with the Prophet ﷺ. They failed then. People have tried throughout history, they failed then. People are trying right now, they are currently failing. They will try all the way to the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and they will continue to fail simply because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that He will be the one to protect the religion of Islam, even if there is nobody else left to protect it.
Okay? So this is what's being preached to these guys. This is what's already in the minds of the guys that have been brought over by the governments as UN soldiers. Yeah.
Say this in English so you can...
Right, this is the Arabs.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance. And
yeah, I mean, all these do-gooders, this woke shit, blah, blah, blah. Nobody that speaks this stuff has read Islam. None of them. Even Muslims haven't read it, for goodness sake.
Very clearly.
Right.
Please understand this message very, very clearly. Of course, it's all sin, it's all haram, none of it is good and accepted. But for the sake of understanding, because many of us, we see a brother that's selling drugs, we see a brother that maybe murdered another brother, and we say, look at these people, look how rubbish they are. Habibi, let me tell you something in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as sin is concerned, yeah? The one that sells drugs, good or bad? Just very quickly, good or bad? Bad. How about the murderer? How about the one who commits adultery, zina? What about the one who rapes a child? What about the one who drinks alcohol? What about the one who does the biggest of the kabair, good or bad? This person, one person that commits all of these sins, he commits all of these sins on a daily basis, but he prays is better in the eyes of Allah than the one that doesn't commit any of these sins but doesn't pray. Please understand this message very, very...
that. And there's a reason why that's the case, and that's because of what's written in the Quran. Yeah? They're not joking when they say this stuff. This is real. This is what they believe. Because it's in there. And I'll briefly give you an introduction as to what it is that's in these systems that people really don't understand. But yet are running around saying, it's you don't understand what you're talking about. And that's exactly how the Bolsheviks want it. Now let's have a listen to this Hamza. If you look on Twitter this week, on the back of all this so-called right-wing stuff, you've got Hamza from Scotland giving it, I don't feel safe in Scotland, all this right-wing stuff, cracking his eyes out, blah, 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 blah. Calling everybody and his dog a racist. He's attacking Elon Musk, he's attacking Farage, everybody. Now let's just remind ourselves of what this guy said when he was in power as the Scottish First Minister.
The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every prison governor, white. And not just justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white. White.
Now, if you don't believe for a second that that's absolute racism, you're a retard. You need to go and get in contact with Tommy Robinson and join his gang. Okay? Now, another interesting thing, but I can't affirm it. I've tried to, but I can't affirm it. But apparently, Andrew Tate, the guy that you either love him or hate him, now in some of his dealings with this accusation of trafficking, apparently he had a flight list, a bit like Epstein. And guess who was on that flight list? Stephen Laxley, a.k.a. Tommy Robinson. Now, why would that be? As I said, I can't confirm it, but I've seen it, and I don't know whether anybody can confirm it or deny it, because if it's not true, it needs to be seen to be not true. But I have seen it, but I couldn't find any more data on that. Now, you've got the other idiot down in London screaming this, oh, I don't feel safe, and it's all blah, 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 blah.
Supporting Donald Trump, who's a racist, sexist and homophobe. Do you regret liking Enoch Powell? Do you regret liking Lee Anderson, the Islamophobe? Will you apologise unequivocally for having those sorts of views and promise to be a mayor if you win that unites communities rather than your record of dividing them?
I do not divide communities. I support all communities. I come from Harrow, where it's the most diverse borough in London, I'd say. It's incredible. And actually, if you look at all... Are you
going to apologise or not?
No, if you look at all communities, we've all got the same values. We all believe in hard work. We all believe in family, and we all believe in fairness. And we should all look at people in that way. We've all got the same values.
No apology for Trump. For Enoch, you regret supporting Donald Trump, who's a racist.
And you look at some of these, you talk to some of these Muslim scholars about this stuff, and that's what they do. They run away because they haven't got the answers. And when they know you know the Quran, they're like little children. They run away, run away, run away. So that's Sadiq Khan trying to gain the higher ground on what was his opponent for the mayorship of London. Now, women, you need to start to think about what you've done.
That she is punished and she is stoned to death. And according to the Sharia again, when it comes to women, there must be a hole dug in the earth, in the ground, and she must be covered up to the half of the body, so that her satar does not appear. Her that she is punished and she is stoned to death.
Right. Can you see why they've divided the family? Because if they can get this across Europe, you women that have been doing it for yourself all these years and didn't need a male, if you think your troubles have been bad since you got rid of your male, it ain't even started.
These are the paid persuaders and intellectual spear carriers who build these social movements from above. It's a process known as astroturfing. Astroturfing is when you lead the world to believe what is happening is grassroots and is organic, but it is actually a reflection of the agency of the powerful. We look, for instance, at an organization known as Middle East Forum, founded by Andrew Hayes. Now the director of this think tank is Greg Roman, a former employee of the Israeli Foreign Ministry and the Israeli Defense Ministry. They received, between 2010 and 2011, around $4 million from Donors Capital, a fund which is largely used to funnel money for the Koch brothers, the billionaire oil barons of the United States. Now, the Middle East Forum funded Gert Wilkins. They also funded Tommy Robinson. The Free Tommy campaign was funded by the Middle East Forum. They paid his legal fees. And in fact, on top of that, Lucy Brown, a former employee of Tommy Robinson, came forward and said that he was receiving £10,000 per month from Robert Shulman. Who was Robert Shulman? He was formerly on the board of directors for the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces. Tommy Robinson has gone to the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, wore an IDF t-shirt and posed with a gun on top of an Israeli tank. He has even said, in the situation of war, he would fight for Israel.
Now, I've said a lot, haven't I? I've spoken of this a lot, about how all our politics in the West, in the last, let's say, 2 years, is all about Palestine and Israel. Our own politics don't even come into it. There's no mention of our own politics. In fact, if anybody mentions our politics, now, today, you class us far right. People really don't understand how this game, mind game, works, but I think people are starting to realise how it works. They're so far on with this game, it's quite ridiculous. It really is. But all these people, I mean, look, you've got Alex Jones, all these people. At the back of all this is a priesthood that operates as the administrators for the will of the trustees for this Holy See banking dynasties, you might call S Corporation, the holding company. Yeah, and it's not so much a religious gig, although they will use anything and everything. As they say at the top, religion is useful. It's very useful. Because when you see religion playing in this game, everybody gets excited because they're all stuck in one or the other. And so if you're seeing one of the other ones having more advantage, you're getting cross and upset. And that's the way that these trustees work and operate the religions. And it works. And behind this right now is Bolshevism. Now, let me see if I can find... What did I put up here? Now, that's just to show you that that's an image of the Olympics during these 2 weeks. Normally, the cities that hold these Olympics are ram-packed. That's empty, Paris, because everything was cashless and a QR code. And basically, everybody just said, no, thank you. They said, no, thank you to that. Now, if we look at America, you know, these two guys have been set up as ultimate enemies. Do they look like enemies to you? You see, the Ukraine war was set off by the one on the right. In order, the one on the left could decry the one on the right and claim to be his opposition, in order the Bolsheviks that have the root in Russia can be seen as, oh, they're the good side by the guy on the left, who he could then amalgamate with Russia. And his recent speech about, come out Christians to vote, I'm not a Christian, but come out Christians to vote for the last time, because it'll be the last time you vote, because the Noahide will be in, the Sanhedrin will be deciding everything. So Donald Trump is as much of a Bolshevist as the one on the right. Just in the same way as the Tories are the corporatists, as Labour are the Bolshevists. Same gig, fascists, Bolsheviks. You know, we're going about this, we won the war. Nobody won the fucking war except the Holy See banking dynasties. It's so sad to see that people have... You've got this idiot here, not said a word about the fact that his church is being handed over to the Vatican state. And you've got the CPS striking. It's not about exciting revenge, it's about delivering justice. Far right young Christian says, oh, it's Bishop of Canterbury. What would he know about Christian? Apart from nothing. And again, we've got... So this is Crown Prosecution Service. Stephen Parkinson, the Director of Public Prosecution, has told Darkshire Gadda at Sunday Times that the Crown Prosecution Service will be authorising more charges in the coming days and weeks. It's not about exacting revenge, it's about delivering justice. The corporate. There is no justice in the corporate. That's in the common law. See, they're lying. These guys, everything they say is a lie. They're talking about coming and arresting you for what they claim is to be a lie on social media. But look what he's just said. It's not about exacting revenge. It's about delivering justice. The private, for-profit corporations, they do not deal in justice. That is a fucking barefaced lie. We warned of the consequences, and we will deliver those consequences. We are likely to authorise more charges in the coming days and weeks. Future cases could involve more serious offences, including rioting, which carries a maximum 10-year sentence. Stephen Parkinson, Director of Public Prosecution's statement. He's a liar. Delivering justice. Bullshit. You're delivering on contract law on persons. Not man. On persons. On individuals. On residents. Not man. Not flesh and blood. No, the debtor, not the creditor. It's just, oof. You know, and what I've witnessed in these last few months with this council tax, I mean, to be quite frank, it's been quite interesting because I've got conditional acceptances in all over the shop. I've bound these people in agreements. But more importantly, the strategy employed from the beginning was to play slightly off so that they thought they could do what they do as practice, not realising that actually this is going somewhere else, and they didn't realise, and they've just railroaded the game like they do with everybody and done everything wrong, and I've done everything right, and I've got the paperwork, I've got the contracts. We've got it all together. And I was watching something on Vobes the other day, some Mick Butler or something, and I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, okay. And at the end of it, he's giving it, yeah, I'm going to go to the ICO. Why the fuck would you go to the ICO? It's the corporate, you dipstick. And what are you trying to do, lead people down a merry dance? If you're going into the judiciary, you have the judicial office, you have and the Civil Procedure Committee and the HMCTS. Why the fuck would you go to the ICO, you dumbass? You're playing in the corporate. You might as well continue in them council-hired rooms in the court. You see, in this game, I've bound the court manager into it, the receivers into it, a judge for concealment. You see, who's responsible for these courts? The court manager. There's actually 2 registrars in a court. They're responsible too. But all anybody does is keep it fixed in this shenanigans that the council are hiring these courts. Why would you do that? Drag everybody else in. What are you letting? What's going on here? You're responsible for this. Concealment. Breach of CPR. Breach of the contract I've got them in. Unconditional acceptance and acceptance certificates delivered special delivery. You're doing it all wrong, people. Why? And I'll tell you for why. Because you're lazy. And all you're doing is listening to dipsticks and following it. Without comprehending it. Because when you comprehend it, then you can see the game. You can see everything they're doing. And you start to see the game. What they're doing. They pretty much showed me their entire game plan. In these 3 months. Their entire game plan. They ignore you, they ignore you, they ignore you. And pretend it's not happening. But when you've done the correct paperwork, you've created the case management file. You've created the bundle. You've got judicial review. You've got the King's Bench. You've got, as the 3 I've just recited, Judicial Office, Civil Procedure Committee, and the HMCTS to report this shit. Get them for fraud. Fraud, failure to disclose from one person to another is fraud. It's concealment. And they're doing it because there's no case management file. One judge isn't producing what was in the file to the other. It's concealment. And would you go to ICO with that, would you, unless you're a complete and utter lunatic? Right, so this is what you need to start to recognise when you're doing this stuff. You don't know your ass from your elbow because you're copying. You're not getting stuck in and understanding it and comprehending it. So you're born idle and lazy, and I'm telling you off for being born idle and fucking lazy. So if you've really got something about you, you're not just fanning around, you really want to get stuck into this stuff, get a fucking grip, stop copying everybody else's shite, and recognise your standing as man. Because you're running around saying you're not man, but running around as a person. Go into ICO. What fucking idiot would take something to the ICO? You would have to be an idiot, wouldn't you? So who are these people that this Vobes keeps fucking having on his show? They don't give you fuck all. Apart from, go to this website, we've got all the documents here for you, you go to the website, they want money. Fucking money. And then what do they give you? I don't know, because if you think I'm paying for fucking anything, you must be one off. Because they're all full of shit. All of them. They're all making money off you. They're all lying to you. They're all full of shit. And I've had people in all these organisations and operations, unbeknown to these organisations and operations, for the last 4 years. There's not a single fucking bunch of tossers out there playing low that I don't know exactly what they're doing. Every one of you. And if you're watching this tonight, you as well. I know exactly what you've done. I know exactly, I've got a rough idea what you've made. You just want to hope I don't find out where you live, because if I do, I'll be passing that on to all the bastards that you've fucked. How about that? Shills are everywhere and they're scamming you stupid. But they only can scam you because you're not paying attention. I'm sorry I got excited there on a Sunday. Well, I'm not sorry really anyway. I don't actually give a shit. With far more important things afoot. But learn your lesson from what's happened this week, ladies and gentlemen. Do not be a fruit bat. Running around, shouting, bawling, throwing stones, throwing bottles, throwing fireworks, throwing paint on buildings isn't how you take your country back. You have to think better than they think. You've got England. The judiciary's still there. And they're shitting themselves. Especially these arsewipes, these Johnny-come-lately councils, these pretend judges, these clerks that are not clerks, but then are they? You see, they wouldn't give me the name of the clerk. So that suggests to me the actual clerk that's organising them hearings for these private councils are in fact part of the judiciary. They shit themselves when I wanted the name of the clerk. And I mean shit themselves. And I've got the court manager now on that. Why did you not give me the name of the clerk so I could have given the clerk the correct information? Acting for the receivables. So that the judge, acting for the payables, knew the crack. Do you know why they didn't want? Because it's concealment. They're concealing what I had in them conditional acceptances. Binding contracts with the CEO of the council. Don't piss about with the officers in the council. Look up the CEO and the responsibilities. They're responsible for everything beneath them. Get them. And in your paperwork, make it clear. You're removing their right and assumed rights to statutory protection, whether private or assumed. You're not playing the game properly. You're not playing the game because you're not seeing the game. Look into what a court order has to be. And then look at your court order, supposedly. It's missing something. It doesn't have to be a wet signature. CPR 5A, 5.3. Look at it. That's the rules. Not my rules. That's their rules. That's the rules they have to abide by. And if they don't, they're in some deep shit. But if you're going to take it to the ICO, they're not in any deep shit. The ICO's sucking shit out of their arse. They're all sucking shit out of each other's asses because they're all spending the money about. Stop acting like kids and babies and then going, oh, boo fucking me. Boo you because you're not putting the effort in. You've got till January. And then the Land Act ends. Your estate's going into the no-hide system. And then Trump comes in, maybe. Doesn't matter if Trump comes in or not. It don't matter who comes in. But he's Dr. No-hide. Americans, have you any idea what's going to happen when they shift your estates into the no-hide system? One thing that hasn't happened, Americans do not look at English and think that we are them fucking arsewipes on the street. That we are them bastards in Parliament. That Sir Jimmy Savile's vagina, Keir Starmer, has got anything to do with England. These talking heads in Parliament, nothing to do with England. Nothing. Don't ever think that England is that. That isn't what England is. This is England, this mouth here, and others. Not many. Not because they don't have the balls for it, they just don't understand what England is. Well, I understand what England is, I understand what America is. We are one and the same. And every step off America you've become towards the United States has been a step off England. And you need to know it. Because England is a body of law. And it gives you the freedoms. Gives me the freedoms. And the Bolshevik bastards are trying to take it away. Because they are the empire. They are Zion. And they now have a new toy to play with. Now, this is not being disrespectful, what I'm about to say now. But this needs to be known because Muslims don't even know this. And I've told you before, I've studied this stuff. I've studied the Quran, I've studied the Hadith. Okay? I'm not playing let's exchange verses and parables here with anybody. I wouldn't even do it if we were talking about biblical. It's just a game of nonsense. But this is what's in the Quran. And people need to be aware of it. Because this is what's in the book. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm going to tell you word for word. I'll paraphrase what's in the book. And that is this. That Allah has apportioned for every Muslim the amount of adultery he will be forced to commit by Allah. By eye, by mouth, by private part. He will force them to do it. That's what it says. And they're only following the man. Because the man had a game he played, which was he would steal a married man's wife, have his way with them, and then sell them. Sell them. And we have words today that describe those actions. They're not in the books, but we have words today that describe both those actions, and that is rape and slavery. And I know Muslims don't understand their own books like that because they don't read it. And the imams, because they go into the hadith outside of the Quran, kafir. And they're creating the Sharia law on that and you're following it. So understand that as I'm presenting it, chaps, because that's not to insult you. I'm teaching you something that you don't know and the imams are not telling you. And we've just looked at some of these political arms of what's coming with this opportunity while the state's supporting this on the back of what Tommy Robinson's created and the fruit bats that follow him because there's nothing but anger to offer. They're going to try and shove this in this window of opportunity. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what's going on right now. And all this has gone on during the 2024 Olympics. Has peace been removed from the earth? You bet your bottom fucking dollar it's been removed from the earth. Unless people wake up and stop fannying around expecting everybody else to wipe your ass. Because it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Everything's got to be a two-way show. And it ain't going away, folks. It ain't going away. And that's in the entire West. In Europe. Australia, they're being loaded up now. New Zealand's been up its arse forever. And Canada's been up its arse since Castro's little bastard son got in and called himself Prime Minister. Bolshevism, ladies and gentlemen, is what this is. With the mix of fascism. And that's what's happened. While you were playing with yourself, busy being supremely fantastic and amazing, and working out ways you could wreck your own families. So as I've said earlier, if you've got offspring and you've no connection, and you're a male, you better reconnect with your offspring and rapid. Because you might not be able to save that crazy bitch woman that run off and thought she was amazing and fantastic, but you're the only one that's going to be able to protect your offspring from what's coming. If these political lunatics are able to persuade these that have been coming in from backward, to rise and expand what we've done this week on our streets. They're all looking at it the wrong way around. Right wing means nothing. They were little idiot kids, not just numpties, set up, completely set up. Southport, all of them, set up. Got to see how this game plays. It's not how you see it. It's not a movie. It's real. This is real time. So, there endeth the Sunday sermon. So, what do you have to say to that diatribe? Let's have a look. Now then. Oh yeah, there we go. So, a possessed child is believed to have been the culprit behind the death of the Irish priest Malachi Martin. See, interesting. Is there some symbolism there? What? Did he just want to disappear? Because I think he upset a lot of people. What that guy did in his day was, you know, there were a lot of Catholic power didn't like him, and the mafias that were tied to the Holy See families as well didn't like him. Can't watch TV anymore, Mark. I don't blame you. I haven't watched it for 20 years. Not even plumbed my TV in since the move, says Debbie. Don't blame you, Debbie. Solver mist. All white. What's all white? Are we talking about? Alright. Because, Tonga, John Smith, Enoch Powell deserves an apology. He was right about everything. Didn't take a brain cells to know that though, did it? And you know what people really need to get a grip of? The only force that's ever opposed all this is the Catholic Church. So only force that's ever opposed it. Which is why you found it mixed in with fascism. Because they believed they were opposing it. It's why, if I go back into my grandfather's side, they were all supporting Charles Mosley and funding him. You can understand the blank. Now that you can see the blank today, that's exactly the same way that they were blanked. Everybody gets blanked. And then it's too late. It gets to a point where it's too late. It's too late to change it. You're in it, it's happening, it's on. And you have to deal with it in that respect. I don't know. Where are we now? We live in a world of smoke and mirrors. We do. Indeed. 100% Sean. Space off remarks, gives it the smiley face, and Ulick says amen. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, amen to that. I'll see you next week. Have a good one. Where are we?
Okay.